to Simple Conversations with ASG.
Right, got 10 quickfire questions for you here, and things have been roaming around my head that I couldn't form into real questions. I just write them down. So I'll start with the first one. Did the Beatles actually gamble with Elvis?
What, and win or lose?
No, well, the story is apparently they played roulette with him in his house in Bel Air. Is that true?
Yeah, they did, and they played. I think they played a bit of pool as well, and then a couple of the guitars got out, and they had a little jam session and stuff. And it was the coming together of the greatest artists of the 20th century, the greatest solo performer and the greatest group. The problem was it's weird with the timing because John wanted to be Elvis. Elvis was king for all of them. Then, of course, by 1960, he's been off in the army, come back, and he's into the movies. They didn't like the music that came out of him. They loved all that early stuff. So by the time they're meeting up, then some of the shine had gone. But having spoken to some of the people who were there, they said suddenly that it was almost like that there was an awe and a shock. Right, now we're here, what do we do? Then the ice gets broken, and that was it. And they were off and chatting away and stuff and got on really well together.
The next one is, did the Beatles actually smoke weed with Bob Dylan?
Well, the story is always that Dylan introduced them to weed. And as a more regular thing, yes, he did. But they first encountered the old marijuana back in 1960 in Liverpool. So they were hanging out in the black clubs of Liverpool, where there's a lot of, particularly the Caribbean community, who did like to partake of the weed. And that's where they first came across it and tried it early on. But I think the meeting with Dylan changed it. And again, having spoken to a couple of the journalists who were around at the time, said walked into the room and said it's just this cloud that you walked into. So yes, there was a fair amount consumed, and had done for many, many years afterwards.
Another smoke-related question, but did the members of the Beatles really smoke hundreds of cigarettes a day?
George was a chain smoker. He was terrible for it, but he did smoke a lot of cigarettes. They really did. I think George was the worst out of all of them. You put one down, next one would be in. Yeah, it was not healthy at all, unfortunately.
Was the song Lady Madonna about an actual person?
Unlikely. The problem is with a lot of the songs, Paul's told different stories at different times, and we keep getting different elements of it. Like with Eleanor Rigby, we finally got, we think, all the different elements to tell the whole of that story together. I think for Lady Madonna, it was more as a tribute to seeing what his mum had to do, and of course she features in Let It Be as well. And it's these amazing mothers who managed to do a job, run a house, bring up a family, all on their own. So I think that it's a coming together of the ideal of the mum, but a bit of a tribute to his mum, Mary, as well.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this, but why do people believe the Beatles only wrote songs about prostitutes and lesbians?
Where have you got that one from?
There's an interview in America where one of the reporters asked, I think he might ask George a question about a song where George mentions something about paying a woman or something, and Paul McCartney screams over the top, it's because whenever we're writing our songs, in our heads is the image of prostitutes and lesbians.
Anything like that was going to be their memories of Hamburg. Because for the first time during this, let's say, this sex capital of Europe, where anything happened, live sex on stage, you name it, first time they encounter prostitutes, naked ladies in the window, transvestites, anything. They'd never seen anything like that in their lives. And I think for George to say he was this innocent 17-year-old kid when he went out there, but none of them really had great sexual experience before going to Hamburg anyway. And suddenly they had all this freedom to go and experiment. And it must have been almost as mind-blowing as them taking the first LSD trip. And I think that those kind of experiences at that age, I don't think ever left them. So whatever they went on to do, they still had. It's one of those, I remember saying this. I interviewed Pete Best a few years ago, and I said to him, "So come on, Pete, tell me about Hamburg." And whenever you mention Hamburg to any of the musicians who went over there, they have what I call the Hamburg smile. You think, okay, you're going to tell me 5% of what you know, but your smile's telling me the rest. There's just, they'd all have all these experiences as teenagers, and they would just go back to this place and wow, we actually did that.
These last four are a little bit more serious, and I'm going to leave one that's going to upset a lot of people. The first of the four is: were the living members of the Beatles actually invited to Paul McCartney's wedding?
Which wedding? So you're talking about when he marries Linda?
Yeah, because there was controversy over why they never attended.
Yeah, it was done quite quickly, and by then, I think that's one of those signs that they were drifting apart. Because of course, Paul gets married, John and Yoko then suddenly are scrambling around trying to find someone to get married as well. It was that kind of competition, and because Yoko was now in the mix, and that was becoming very uncomfortable. I think it was one of those sure signs that the division was there, and because otherwise you would have your best mates would be there at your wedding. And I think by then you could tell things were not good, which is a shame. It's just another symptom of what was going on.
Did John Lennon say cranberry sauce or berry Paul?
Cranberry sauce.
Still gets waved around everywhere. That Beatles Reddit I was on today, I saw some threats to people's lives over this. Like, this is still huge debate. Like, it's insane.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So there we go. We said cranberry sauce.
Yeah.
Right. Second last one, which is one I didn't read into because I need you to explain it to me, because you know more than the people online. Why, in God's name, do people believe Paul McCartney died in a car accident? That is the most random story I've ever seen.
Oh, it's brilliant. You can have so much fun. Once it had come out, it's a radio DJ, I think, was come up with it and started the story. And because you don't have social media like we do now, it was in those days when if it came through a newspaper or a radio show, it was assumed it was honest. Obviously, we know since then that fake news and everything. But so the news came out, and then it's word of mouth. And suddenly this word is that Paul's been killed and has been replaced by a double, and you can tell because, and that's the rabbit hole you go down. You start looking for all the clues. It's so much, you can have so much fun with it. And once the Beatles knew that this was going on, they played into it as well. I mean, the whole thing with the Abbey Road crossing, with John the Undertaker, Paul hasn't got his shoes on, therefore he's, yeah. The registration number of the Volkswagen Beetle on the cover of Abbey Road. It was the age that Paul was. It's like anything. If you want to go and find something, you will just dig and dig until you find something that justifies whatever it is you're trying to create. That one, and it still rumbles on. It's fun. It is so much fun. Unfortunately, though, it is true.
Right. Last one, and I've put it the last one because I know some people are going to fucking hate me for asking this, but with all the big excitement and everybody's loving, seeing the two brothers back together, but with this whole hype over the Oasis reunion, can you finally please tell these people, are the Beatles bigger than Oasis, and would their reunion blow it out of the water? If they were still alive, all of them.
There will never be a band, an artist in history who could blow the Beatles out of the water. And it's like the film Yesterday. No, one of my favourite scenes in Yesterday, when the guy's woken up and nobody seems to know who the Beatles are. and then you go to Google and puts in Oasis, and nothing crops up, and I go, love it. That's one of the best lines in there. I think it's brilliant, because they were so influenced by the Beatles, and also, which a lot of people don't realise, but a lot of the inspiration for their first album came because they were hanging out in Liverpool with a Liverpool band called The Real People, who helped them a lot with their first album. So a lot of Oasis' first album is very much inspired in Liverpool and from Liverpool musicians. And when the Beatles played in Manchester, they played at the Oasis Club. Connection? So no. So I'm going to an Oasis gig, because I never saw them first time round, which I'll enjoy, but you can't mention any other band anywhere near where the Beatles are for what they did, for what they achieved, because virtually every other band who followed is only there because of what they did first. And for me, if you do it first, then you're the ones.